was first told by the Indians out west, our western Indians. Now y'all might remember a story about a very greedy cat who swallowed everything it came in contact with. Well, that was from the country India. This is from our country out west where the Indians live. You might have remembered if you were last year. Last year you might have heard it if I came to class. It's called The Coyote and the Crying Song. Now, in Florida where we live, we have a little dove, a little bird that builds her nest on the ground. She lays her eggs in the nest, but she can fly, and her babies can fly too later. But she doesn't build her nest in a tree like doves. Some of them are white. You've probably seen the white dove with the olive branch. They're all gentle and peaceful and very, very. They're not harmful. Also, there's brown doves and there are gray doves. Lots of different kind of doves. They're all in the same family. The kind of dove that lives here is called the mourning dove. That's one of the kinds that lives here. And it's not just because you can hear them sing in the morning. It's because the sound that they make is so sad and so sorrowful. It sounds like they're mourning. You know, when somebody dies or when you're real sad, you're mourning. And it's kind of like this. Goo, goo. And if you get up early on a summer morning and you go out in the yard and you listen, you might hear them. I hear a lot of them in July around here. Also, in this part of Florida where we live, we have not a coyote, a fox. It's in the same family with a coyote, but it's a little brown dog-like creature. And sometimes they say a red fox. It's kind of reddish brown. And Sydney's father is a policeman, and when he drives around late at night through the lonely roads, he sees foxes. And about 3 years ago, I was putting out some food for the kitty cat on the back steps, and there was a fox in the yard. That's the only one I've ever seen, but I saw a fox myself too one night when I was putting. So in this story, there's a dove. It's a little brown dove. And in this story, there's a coyote, which is kin to the fox and also kin to the dog and also kin to the wolf. You know a lot of stories about wolves, don't you? Well, they're all in the same canine family. And they're all alike in some ways, but they're different too. Okay. Ready? Out west, the Indians noticed that the sound that the dove made and the sound that the coyote made were alike. And they wondered why. If you listen to this story, you'll know why. Now out west they have mountains, and some of the mountains are like this. Can you show how the mountains are? Real high, like this. We have some mountains in North Carolina here too. But out west they have a kind of mountain that we don't have. It comes up like this, real high, and then it goes across flat, like the top of a table. The Spanish people that lived here, they said, that mountain is flat as a table. And you know they call them mesas? Because that's a Spanish word that means table. And we call them mesas too, so you'll hear about the mesas. You'll hear about the dove, the coyote, and the mesas. You know how to start a good story?
Once upon a time.
Once upon a time, on the second mesa, there lived a dove. She had a family up there. And she would fly down to the valley every day, and she would get some seeds for them because they weren't able to fly yet. And she would harvest the seeds. The seeds grew on it's their favorite kind of food. It grew on some grass. And what she would have to do, she would take the blades of grass and she would rub them together like this. Do like this, real fast. And when she did, the seeds would she would save the seeds for her little children up on the mountain, up on the mesa. So every day she would come down and she would harvest the seeds. But the trouble was, the blades of that grass was very sharp. And after she had harvested for a while, her hands would begin to get very sore. Do it. Because it's sharp. And she would begin to moan and cry. And this is the way she sounded. Ooh, 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 ooh. Just listen for us, okay? Ooh, ooh, ooh. Ooh, ooh, ooh. And she would keep, but she kept on because she needed to harvest those seeds for her little ones. Well, not far away in the tall grass, there was a coyote hunting. And he heard that sound that she was making, and he stopped and listened, and he thought, that is a very pretty sound and a very pretty voice. I'm going to go see who it is that's making that sound, and I'm going to get him to sing it again for me so I'll learn it. I'd like to learn that song. So he went through the high grass over to where the dove was working, and she was still working, and he stood there and listened and watched while she threshed the seeds loose in the grass like this. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Now y'all can do it because you know how if you don't do it too loud and you have to keep together. And so the coyote said, oh, that is a really pretty song you sing. I was over there hunting and I heard you singing that pretty song and I came over here because I wanted to listen to it again. I just stood there listening. And she says, sir, I wasn't singing. And he says, well, I was just, he says, you're insulting my intelligence. I stood there and listened to you sing that song. He says, that's a pretty song and I want you to sing it again for me so I can learn it. And she says, but, he said, or had you rather be eaten? And she said, so she started again. Ooh, ooh, ooh. And the coyote listened. He says, I know, I can remember that. And he started to say it over and over to himself, and he started running as fast as he could. So how was running back to his den. He was going to take it back to his den and practice it and learn it so he could sing it. And he was saying it over and over, and he wasn't paying attention where he was going. He ran right into a sagebrush. And when he ran into the sagebrush, he tumbled. Have you ever heard of tumbleweed?
Yes.
He tumbled over and over and over like a tumbleweed, and when he landed, he said, huh, how did that song go? Let's see, it went, it's out of my mind. I've got to go back and get her to sing it for me again. So he turned around, and he went back to where she was working. And he said, I tripped over a sagebrush out there and I fell down and the song slipped right out of my hand. You're going to have to sing it again. She says, sir, I'm trying to tell you I'm not singing, I'm crying. And look, and she tried to show him how sore her hands were. And he says, I need you to sing that song again. It went out of my head. I want you to sing it again now, or had you rather be eaten? And she said, and he turned and ran as fast as he could. He ran right by that brush. He didn't bump into it this time, and he was saying it over and over. You know how when you try to learn something, sometimes you say it over to yourself over and over in your mind? That's what he was doing. He was trying not to forget it. And he came to a gully.
Gully.
Now out west, it doesn't rain very much, but when it rains, sometimes it makes a ditch. The water makes a ditch, a real deep ditch, and the water flows through. Well, there wasn't any water in this ditch because it hadn't been raining for a long time. He could jump over it real easy. He started to jump over it, but he was so busy saying that song, he didn't notice how far it was, and he didn't make it to the other side. He fell right down to the bottom of that ditch and hit real hard. And he sat there and said, uh-oh, that song, how did it go now? Let me see. Oh, it went out of my head again. I'm going to have to go back again. So he climbed up out of the ditch and he went back to where she was working. He says, you're going to have to sing that song again for me because that's a very slippery song. It goes right out of my mind. I fell into a ditch and it just went out. Now sing it for me. She says, oh, please listen to me when I tell you. Look at my hands. I'm not singing, I'm crying. And he says, sing it for me now. And he kind of growled. So she started again. But he said, oh, cut it now, cut it now. And he ran as fast as he could. So I was running. He ran right by that sagebrush and he jumped over the ditch. That was real easy. He could jump over it, but he was saying it over and over and over. He remembered it. He got all the way to his den and he still remembered it. He ran inside his den, but he forgot there was a rock right there by the front of his den. And when he went into his den, he tripped over it. And he fell down in his den. He was there. He could stop. And the song was gone. But the dove, back where she was working, she kept thinking, she thought to herself, every time that coyote comes back, he's grouchier than before. I'd better pack up these seeds and I'd better go back up to the mesa before he comes back again. So she put all the seeds into her apron and she